Korean Mafia boss said, "Dance with him." Hadn't felt alive for 10 years until I grabbed him. The underground gala wasn't on any map. Hidden beneath a luxury hotel in Gangnam, the secret ballroom was carved from black marble and lit by chandeliers dripping with crystal. Every guest wore elegance like armor, diamonds, silk, and masks that hid more than faces. But none of them mattered. Because tonight, Baek Do-hyun, the cold and untouchable mafia boss of the Baek society, was present. He stood alone at the back of the ballroom, tall, sharp-featured, dressed in a matte black suit that made him look carved out of the night itself. Rumor claimed he hadn't smiled in 10 years. Rumor also claimed he was incapable of feeling anything. Both were true. You watch people move. His expression stayed unreadable, eyes hollow, heart colder than the glass of whiskey in his hand. Then the music changed. A spotlight swept across the stage, and the murmurs of the powerful died down like someone pressed mute on the world. And she walked out. Anaya Jordan. A woman who didn't belong in a room like this, and yet somehow owned it. Her skin glowed rich and warm beneath the lights, curls falling down her back like inked silk. The red dress she wore didn't scream for attention, it commanded it. The fabric shimmered with every step, hugging curves with a confidence born from survival, not vanity. Do-hyun's fingers froze around his glass. His mind, usually razor-sharp, went blank. The ballroom felt smaller, the air thicker, like the whole underground world contracted to a single point. Anaya didn't dance like someone performing. She danced like someone telling the truth. Her hips moved with rhythm carried from another continent, her arms slow and intentional, her expression soft yet fierce. Each turn was a story, each breath a confession, each step a challenge to anyone watching. Halfway through her routine, her gaze swept across the room and landed on him. Her eyes, deep, bold, alive, locked onto his. Do-hyun inhaled sharply. A small thing barely noticeable to others. But to him, it was the first true breath he'd taken in years. She didn't flinch, didn't shy away. If anything, she danced harder, like she recognized something in him. Something bruised. Something broken. It was absurd. People didn't look the mafia boss in the eyes without trembling. But this woman, this stranger, had looked straight at his dead heart and dared it to beat. And it did. A slow, painful thump, like a machine restarting after a decade of silence. Hyung Nim, his right-hand man whispered, noticing the shift in his posture. "Are you all right?" Do-hyun didn't answer. Because he wasn't. He felt something unfamiliar blaze to life inside him. Something he had forgotten existed. By the time Anaya finished her final spin, ending with her head tilted back and chest rising with controlled breaths, the ballroom erupted in applause. Do-hyun didn't clap. He simply stared with an intensity that made the world fade. And for the first time in 10 long frozen years, he felt alive. The applause faded, but the electricity Anaya left behind lingered like perfume. She stepped off the stage, her breath still leveled from the performance, but her pulse racing from something else. The man in the back of the room. His stare had felt like a storm cloud and a spotlight all at once. "Great performance," one of the attendees said, sliding a business card into her hand. Another smiled too widely, asking if she offered private lessons. A third whispered something inappropriate under his breath. Anaya tried to smile politely, but her skin prickled. Not from the men crowding her, but from a presence behind them. A cold presence. A powerful presence. She glanced up, and there he was, Baek Do-hyun. He didn't push or rush, the crowd simply moved out of his way, like their bodies sensed what their minds feared. He walked with the quiet precision of a man who never needed to raise his voice to be obeyed. His face was unreadable, but his eyes, they were fixed on her. As if he'd been watching her every second since the stage lights cut out. Anaya held her bag tighter. "I think I need some air." She slipped into the back corridor, a quieter pathway lined with gold frames and emergency lamps that cast warm light against the walls. Her heels clicked softly. Her heartbeat clicked louder. Why was she shaking? Fear? Or something else? She rounded a corner, and froze. He was already there. Standing in the corridor like he'd been waiting for her. His black suit seemed darker in the narrow space, his presence thicker, a command in itself. For several seconds they just stared at each other. "You shouldn't walk alone in a place like this," he said finally, his voice deep, smooth, and so calm it was almost disturbing. She swallowed. "You followed me?" "I don't follow people." Pause. "They follow me." Anaya's lips twitched. "Then what do you call this?" He leaned slightly against the wall, hands in pockets, gaze still locked on hers. "A necessary intervention." She raised a brow. From what? From them. His jaw tightened. Men who think they can claim what they don't deserve to touch. Her breath stumbled. Claim? I was just performing. And they were staring like you were prey. She should have been afraid. Anyone else would be. But instead, a strange heat stirred in her stomach. Is that supposed to be a warning? She asked, stepping a little closer, testing him. His expression barely shifted, but something sharpened in his eyes. No, he said softly. It's a promise. A promise of what? Protection? Possession? Danger? She couldn't tell. He straightened, taking a slow step toward her. The air changed temperature. As long as you're in this building, he said, voice lowering, no one touches you, looks at you, or speaks to you without going through me. Her breath caught. Why me? His eyes moved over her face, slow, searching, almost reverent. Because I don't waste my attention, he said. And you have all of it. Anaya blinked. No one had ever said something like that to her, certainly not a man whose presence could silence a whole room. Her voice came out softer than intended. I don't even know your name. He stepped into her space, close enough for her to catch the faint scent of winter air and expensive cologne. Baek Do-hyun, he said. The name hit like thunder. Even she, new to Korea, knew that name. The kind that lived in rumors. Whispered, not spoken. The Mafia boss, she breathed. He didn't deny it. He simply watched her reaction, like measuring if she would run or stand her ground. She didn't move. His expression changed, just barely but enough to reveal it. Respect, interest, and something dangerously close to desire. Most people freeze when they hear my name, he said quietly. Do I look frozen? She asked. His gaze dropped to her lips, only for a breath but enough to make her heart skip. No, he murmured. You look like someone who doesn't know whether to walk away from me, or walk closer. Her pulse pounded. Which was she? Before she could decide, a sudden explosion echoed from the main ballroom. A blast of shattering glass and panicked screams. Do-hyun's calm shattered instantly. He grabbed her wrist, firm and urgent, pulling her behind him. Stay close, he commanded. And for the first time in her life, Anaya obeyed a man without thinking. Because danger had arrived. And the only safe place was behind the Mafia boss who couldn't take his eyes off her. The explosion shook the underground gala like a sudden earthquake. The lights flickered. Glass burst. People screamed. But Do-hyun didn't flinch. His hand closed around Anaya's wrist with a precision and authority that felt both terrifying and reassuring. Stay behind me, he commanded, pulling her with him as the corridor filled with panicked guests trying to escape. Anaya stumbled, heels skidding against the polished floor. What's happening? A rival gang, he said, voice steady even as bullets cracked in the distance. They've been waiting months for a chance to hit us. Tonight they decided they were ready. He wasn't panicked. He wasn't rushed. He was calculating, cold, focused, and frighteningly calm. But his grip on her wasn't. It was warm, human, protective. Men in black suits surged past them, weapons drawn, shouting tactical orders in Korean. Do-hyun didn't spare them a glance. His only concern was the woman whose hand he refused to let go of. Anaya pressed closer to him as a gunshot shattered a nearby vase, spraying ceramic shards across the floor. Her breath hitched. Do-hyun reacted instantly. He turned, wrapped an arm around her waist and pinned her against the nearest wall, his body shielding hers completely. The warmth of him enveloped her. The firmness of his chest pressed against her cheek. His breath brushed her ear. Are you hit? He asked. She shook her head, trembling. And no. He exhaled, a sound closer to relief than she expected from a Mafia boss. More gunshots thundered. The air filled with smoke and shouting. Anaya's heart hammered so loudly she couldn't hear anything else. Except his voice. Look at me. She did. And something in her steadied. We're moving, he said, eyes locked on hers. Don't let go of my hand. I won't, she whispered. He grabbed her hand again, but this time not by the wrist. By the fingers. Interlacing. It felt like trust. He led her through a side hall that only he and his inner circle seemed to know about. Every step was quick, calculated. Every turn was clean and efficient. But as they neared the emergency staircase, a figure darted around the corner. Gun raised. Anaya gasped. But Do-hyun was already moving. He shoved her behind him, grabbed the attacker's wrist, twisted hard, and knocked the gun away with a brutal efficiency that made her chest tighten. The rival's second strike came faster. Do-hyun blocked with his forearm, countered with a punch that dropped the man instantly. It was over in seconds. Anaya stared at the fallen attacker, trembling. You could have died. He turned to her, breath uneven, eyes sharper than she had ever seen. I told you, he murmured. I don't die easily. His hand reached for her again, slower this time, almost gently. Come with me. She didn't hesitate. They ran down the staircase, descending into a dimly lit tunnel beneath the gala. The air was cooler here, quieter, but the danger above echoed in faint vibrations. Only when they reached the tunnel's end did Do-hyun stop. He pressed his hand against a panel. A steel door slid open, revealing a hidden passage leading deeper underground. Anaya panted, hands still clasped in his, trembling with leftover fear. Why are you doing all this for me? She asked, her voice cracking. He turned toward her. And for the first time since she met him, Do-hyun looked shaken. Not by bullets. Not by enemies. But by her. When the explosion went off, he said slowly, I didn't check on my men. I didn't look for the attacker. He lifted her hand, still held in his own, staring at their intertwined fingers like they confused him. My instinct, he whispered, was to find you. Her breath caught. You grabbed me, he continued, voice low. And I. He stopped, jaw clenching. What? She whispered. He closed the distance between them until she could feel his heartbeat, fast, hard, alive. For a moment, he breathed. The world didn't feel cold. The silence in the tunnel felt charged. Anaya's voice softened, barely audible. What did you feel? His eyes locked onto hers, dark, intense, filled with something that had been buried for a decade. Like I was alive again, he said. And I'm not letting go of the woman who made that happen. Before she could respond, another explosion rattled the building above them. Do-hyun grabbed her waist. Let's go, he said, pulling her deeper into the passage. But this time, Anaya didn't hold his hand because she was scared. She held it because she didn't want to lose him. The hidden passage led to a metal staircase that rattled beneath their feet as they climbed upward. Every step echoed with tension. The air smelled of gunpowder, steel, and the faintest trace of Anaya's perfume, warm, sweet, impossible to ignore. Do-hyun kept her close, always one step ahead but never more than an arm's reach away, scanning every corner like a man built for danger. When they finally reached the exit hatch, he paused. Stay behind me, he whispered. She nodded. He pushed open the hatch. And instead of chaos, they emerged into silence. A vast rooftop stretched out under the Seoul night sky, glittering with thousands of city lights and distant stars. The world below was loud, violent, uncontrolled. But up here? It felt like a different universe. Anaya stepped forward, catching her breath. It's beautiful. Do-hyun didn't look at the city. He watched her. You shouldn't have had to run for your life tonight, he said quietly. She turned to face him. How often does that happen to you? Too often, he replied. Lightning flashed in the distance. Not a storm, just the reflection of a helicopter searchlight sweeping across the skyline. But on this rooftop time felt paused. He stepped closer, slower than before, as if unsure whether he had the right. Are you hurt? He asked. No, she whispered. Thanks to you. He exhaled, a tight breath he seemed to have been holding since the first explosion. For a long moment they simply stared at each other, the air heavy with adrenaline. The night quiet except for the wind brushing their clothes. Then, Do-hyun held out his hand. Not forcefully. Not possessively. Softly. Anaya, he said, voice low and threaded with emotion he didn't try to hide. Dance with me. Her lips parted in shock. Here? Now. With everything happening? Yes. His eyes softened. Especially now. She hesitated, looking around the empty rooftop. There's no music. There's enough, he murmured. His hand remained extended, palm open, waiting. Not commanding. Not demanding. But asking. No man had ever asked her gently. Not until him. Anaya stepped closer, placing her hand in his. The touch sent a shiver through him. His fingers closed around hers, not tight but protective, reverent. He guided her into a slow sway. The city hummed beneath them. Wind swept through her curls. The moon painted silver across his sharp jawline. He moved with surprising grace, as if violence and elegance lived in the same body. You're good at this, she whispered. His eyes met hers with a shadow of a smile. 10 years ago, I used to dance often. What stopped you? The smile faded. Life, he said. Death. A breath. And everything in between. She didn't push for more. But he kept talking. Because for the first time in a decade he wanted to. After my brother died, something in me shut off. I stopped feeling. Stopped caring. His voice grew rougher, vulnerable. No matter what I did, the world stayed cold. Anaya's hand slid up his shoulder slightly. And now? He swallowed, eyes darkening with a raw intensity. Now, he whispered. I can feel the warmth from your hand. Her heart clenched. Slowly, his forehead touched hers. Their breaths mingled. Their bodies found a rhythm that wasn't about dancing anymore. Why are you looking at me like that? She asked softly. Because you're the first person to reach into the dark and pull me out, he murmured. And you don't even know me. I know enough, she said. His thumb brushed the side of her waist, tentative but hungry for closeness. I should push you away, he said. My world is dangerous. And yet, you pulled me closer. His jaw tightened, truth cutting through him. Yes, he breathed. I can't explain it, Anaya, but the moment you grabbed my hand, everything changed. Their swaying slowed to a stillness. Her back arched slightly as he drew her nearer. His heartbeat thudded against her chest, fast, strong, alive. She looked up at him. Do-hyun. He leaned in, breath trembling with restraint. If I kiss you, he whispered, I may never let you go. Then don't let go, she whispered back. His eyes closed briefly, pained by how much he felt. But the kiss didn't happen. Not yet. A distant explosion vibrated through the air, reminding them both the night wasn't over. Do-hyun's expression hardened, the softness replaced with protective urgency. We have to leave, he said, pulling her gently toward the stairwell. But before they went, he stopped again, just long enough to press her hand to his chest. Feel that? His heartbeat pounded against her palm. You did this. You brought me back. Anaya swallowed thickly. Then stay alive. Please. His eyes softened with something dangerously close to devotion. For you, he said. I will. And with that, they ran together into the night, hand in hand. The drive to the safe house happened in a blur of city lights and sirens. Do-hyun didn't speak. Not once. Not even when his men updated him through the earpiece. His jaw was tight, hands gripping the wheel, eyes constantly scanning the mirrors. Yet his attention kept drifting back to Anaya, checking if she was breathing, shaking, hurt, terrified. She wasn't terrified. She was watching him. The mighty Baek Do-hyun, feared Mafia boss of Seoul. Breathing hard, shoulders tense, hands trembling just enough that only someone looking very closely would notice. He didn't fear bullets. He feared losing her. When they reached a discreet residential building with no markings and too many security cameras, he guided her inside through a private elevator. The moment the elevator doors closed, the adrenaline drained from her legs. She swayed. Do-hyun caught her instantly, one hand gripping her waist, the other holding her arm steady. You're safe now, he murmured. His voice was strange, rough, low, strained with emotion he didn't know how to express. Are you safe? She asked back, surprising him. His eyes flicked to hers. As long as you're with me. The elevator chimed, doors opening into a spacious safe house, quiet, warm and dimly lit. Not lavish, not grand, but clean and peaceful in a way that felt chosen rather than purchased. Anaya walked slowly, taking it in. This place doesn't look like a mafia hideout. It's not. He stepped inside, closing the door softly behind him. It's the place I go, he said quietly, when I need to feel human. The confession hit her harder than any gunshot. Her throat tightened. Do you come here often? No, he said. His gaze softened. Not until today. She turned fully to him. His face was shadowed by dim light, sharp features softened by fatigue and something deeper. A decade of pain. Sit, he said gently, motioning toward the couch. She obeyed and he knelt in front of her, actually knelt, checking her ankles, her hands, her arms for injuries. You're trembling, he said. You are too, she whispered. His hands froze. Slowly he lifted his gaze to meet hers. For a long, breathless moment, neither moved. Then he exhaled shakily, sat beside her and leaned back against the couch, but not touching her. Not yet. Like he didn't trust himself to. My brother died on a night like this, he said suddenly. Anaya turned toward him, heart aching. You don't have to tell me. I want to, he whispered. No one else knows the whole truth. No one ever asked. He stared ahead, memories visible in the flicker of his eyes. He was the only person I had left when we were forced into this life. We made plans to run away, leave Korea, disappear forever. His voice lowered. But our enemies found him first. Anaya's chest tightened. I'm so sorry. Do-hyun shook his head slowly. After he died, I didn't cry. Not at the funeral. Not afterward. Not once. He turned to her. Grief didn't break me, he said. It froze me. Her breath hitched. I felt nothing for 10 years, he continued. Not anger. Not joy. Not fear. Not guilt. His fingers curled tightly. Not until tonight. Her eyes softened. What changed tonight? He stared at her like the answer frightened him. You. Anaya's lips parted. Me? I saw you on that stage, he murmured, and I felt something crack open inside me. Like my heart remembered how to beat. He leaned closer, slowly, cautiously, as if waiting for her to move away. She didn't. Then you grabbed my hand during the attack, he said, voice trembling with sincerity. And for a moment, just a moment, I wasn't Baek Do-hyun, the Mafia boss. He swallowed. I was just a man, holding on to a woman who made me feel alive. Anaya's eyes glistened. I didn't grab your hand because you're powerful, she said softly. I grabbed it because you looked. She hesitated. Lost, she finished. His breath caught. No one had ever said that to him. No one had dared see through him. He looked away as if the honesty made him vulnerable in a way bullets never could. Anaya reached out, fingertips brushing the back of his hand. Just a small touch. But he inhaled sharply, like a drowning man breaking the surface. Do-hyun. He looked back at her. The silence between them grew warm, heavy, intimate. His fingers moved toward hers, not grabbing, not claiming, just resting beside them. A quiet invitation. She laced her fingers slowly through his. He closed his eyes. The most feared man in Seoul. Undone by the touch of one woman. When he opened them again, his voice was raw. You're the first person, he whispered, that I've wanted to protect for no reason other than wanting to. Not obligation. Not duty. Not strategy. Just wanting you safe. Anaya's breath trembled. Do-hyun, that means... I know. He nodded faintly. That's why it scares me. They sat like that for a long time, fingers entwined, hearts beating in a rhythm neither expected. Outside, danger lurked. Inside the safe house, for the first time in 10 years, Baek Do-hyun felt alive. Not because of survival. Not because of violence. Because of her. The safe house held its own kind of quiet, thick, watchful, like a room waiting for something to break. Outside, Seoul seethed with danger. Inside, there was only the tension between two people who had already survived too much to be careless. Do-hyun moved through that quiet with a restraint that made every small motion feel deliberate. Anaya watched him, the way his shoulders tightened when he thought of danger, the way his jaw worked when he tried to keep emotion contained. He looked tired, older than his years in ways no one else ever saw. You don't have to stay here if it's too much, she said softly, standing by the window where the distant city lights painted faint patterns across her cheek. He didn't look at the skyline. He looked at her. I'm not going anywhere, he answered. The words were simple, but the promise under them was heavy with intent. For a long moment they just existed in the same space, the hum of the air purifier, the uneven rhythm of their breathing. Then Do-hyun crossed the room and stopped just behind her. He didn't touch her at first, he only offered the warmth of his presence. You were right to run, he said. You saved yourself. But you came into a world that doesn't forgive carelessness. Anaya's hand found the window ledge. I didn't come here to be safe. I came to dance. To live. Her voice was steadier than she felt. He frowned as if the word live had been an accusation and a blessing both. You danced like you were telling the truth. She turned slowly to face him. The lamplight softened his features. For a breath she saw the man that lurked beneath the legend, raw, human, fragile. Why are you so different around me? She asked. Why protect me like this? Do-hyun's mouth tightened. Because when the bullets started, I didn't think about strategy. I didn't think about orders. I thought about you. He stopped, struggling to fold that admission into words. I remembered something I had lost. She swallowed. And what did you remember? How it felt to want someone alive next to me, he whispered. His fingers hovered near her shoulder, uncertain whether to reach. Not out of command. Not for business. Just because I wanted it. Anaya's throat clenched. Do-hyun. He finally closed the distance. His hand came up, warm and tentative, cupping the side of her face. The motion was careful, like a man testing whether fragile things could be handled without breaking. You keep saying things that make no sense to me, she murmured, though her chest felt as if it might split from the pressure of the moment. Then I'll make this simple. His voice was low, a husk softened at the edges. If anyone hurts you, they die. That's not a threat. It's a fact. Her eyes widened at the brutal softness behind the line. She wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. You don't mean that literally, she said, attempting a brittle smile. Right? His lips twitched, almost a smile, almost pity. I mean every word. There was no anger in his look. Only a fierce tenderness she hadn't seen in the boardrooms, the crime scenes, the closed-door meetings. It unsettled her, in the best way. They were close enough now that she could see the tiny scar by his eyebrow, the faint tremor at the corner of his mouth. He smelled like smoke and something clean and sharp that made the world narrow until there was only the two of them. Do-hyun's hand tightened on her face, not enough to hurt, enough to anchor. Anaya, he said, voice dropping lower, I have no right to want this. You don't belong to my world. She reached up and steadied his wrist. You don't get to decide what I belong to. Something like awe passed through him. He leaned in, slow, deliberate, giving her time. There was a hesitation there that felt like a man asking permission from the part of himself that had been asleep for a decade. When his lips finally met hers, it wasn't violent. It wasn't a conquest. It was a question and an answer both, gentle at first, then deeper, as if each was testing the other for truth. The kiss was a surrender from him and a yielding from her. It carried the weight of every danger they'd escaped and the fragile hope of what could come. Time narrowed. The apartment's distant noises blurred. For a moment, the world shrank to the press of breath and the warmth of skin. Then Do-hyun broke the kiss, forehead resting against hers, both of them breathing too fast. I shouldn't have done that, he said, voice raw. I shouldn't have kissed you. You did, she replied, the corner of her mouth lifting. And I'm not sorry. He closed his eyes as if saving that sentence. When he opened them, they were clearer than before, decisions made, lines drawn. We can't pretend danger won't follow, he warned. If we stay close, they'll use every weakness. You'll be a target. She took his hand and placed it over her heart. Make me your weakness. For a moment he simply stared, the idea both terrifying and intoxicating. Then I will hide you, he said finally, and those words were a vow. Even if the world tries to tear me apart for it. Outside, sirens screamed and a helicopter thudded distantly. Inside, a mafia boss who had been half dead for 10 years had given himself something he almost forgot how to hold. A fragile, blazing human connection. They sat like that until the cold crept under the door, and then reluctantly they began to plan, to brace for the storm that was still coming. But neither of them moved away from the small, stubborn warmth they'd found in each other. The night tasted like smoke and danger. The safe house alarm hadn't stopped blaring since the moment Do-hyun recognized the symbol burned into the front gate security feed, the mark of the Shinji WI syndicate. His greatest rivals. The ones who had supposedly died out 8 years ago. The ones who wanted Anaya. She stood in the hallway clutching the strap of the bag Do-hyun had packed for her, passport, burner phone, cash, all the things she'd need if she ran. But she wasn't looking at the bag. She was looking at him. Baek Do-hyun holstered his gun with the cold efficiency of a man who had lived too long in war. Yet his eyes, dark, sharp, frantic, kept flicking to her as if making sure she was still there, still breathing. Anaya, he said low and urgent, you leave through the back exit. My men are waiting. She shook her head instantly. Do-hyun, I'm not leaving you here alone. You have to. His voice cracked, not in weakness but in desperation. They don't want to fight. They want leverage. They want you. And what about you? She shot back. You think I'm going to run and leave you to die? He stepped forward so fast the air shifted between them. His hands gripped her shoulders, strong enough to steady her but gentle enough not to trap her. If they touch you, if they even breathe in your direction, everything in me will break. His voice was rough, barely controlled. I can survive losing territory. I can survive losing men. But losing you. He swallowed, jaw tightening. I won't survive that. Her chest tightened with something fierce and aching. You told me not to tempt you, she whispered. But you're the one making promises like this. A faint, pained smile ghosted across his lips. I'm the one who said, dance with me, remember? And I haven't survived a night since without remembering how it felt when you grabbed me back. A distant explosion rocked the safe house. Dust rained down from the ceiling. He pulled her closer. This is our last chance, he said. Please, go. But Anaya's eyes were fearless. Then come with me. For the first time all night his composure cracked. You don't understand, he said. This world doesn't let men like me walk away. Not alive. Not whole. She reached up, pressing her palm to his cheek. Then let me decide whether I want to stay. Silence fell, thick, sharp, trembling with everything they hadn't said. Do-hyun exhaled sharply, like he was releasing 10 years of ghosts. His forehead leaned against hers, his breath brushing her lips. "You're going to be the end of me," he whispered. "Then die next to me," she whispered back. Something inside him snapped, not in fury but in surrender. He kissed her again, this time harder, longer, as if imprinting the memory before the world tore them apart. His hands framed her face, sliding into her curls, pulling her closer like the world was ending. Another explosion thundered outside. He broke the kiss abruptly, breath shaking. "I need you to trust me," he said. "No matter what you hear. No matter what happens." He grabbed a nearby duffel bag and slung it over his shoulder, then reached for her hand. "Come with me." They ran down the back corridor, boots thudding, alarms screaming. The emergency lights cast their shadows long across the walls. When they reached the back loading door, Do-hyun stopped again. "Before we go," he said, voice raw, "I need to ask you something." He pulled her close, the world exploding behind them, and whispered, "Dance with me." She stared at him, breathless. "Now. When people are trying to kill us." He nodded. "I need to remember this feeling, in case I never feel alive again." Her heart cracked. Without hesitation, she stepped into him, placing her hands on his chest. He wrapped an arm around her waist, pulling her into a slow, swaying hold. No music. No ballroom. Just two people in a burning world taking one last moment for themselves. The sound of bullets didn't matter. The smoke didn't matter. The danger didn't matter. Only the way his fingers tightened against her lower back. Only the way her cheek pressed to his chest and heard his heart race. Alive, alive, alive. Only the way he whispered, "You made me feel something I thought I buried 10 years ago." When the final barrier broke and the enemy burst into the courtyard, Do-hyun pulled back just enough to cup her face. "If I don't make it out." "You will," she interrupted. "If I don't," he continued, voice breaking, "remember this. I felt alive because of you. Not despite you." His thumb brushed a tear from her cheek. "And if I die," his voice tightened with emotion, "I'll die dancing with you." Before she could reply, he shoved open the back door, pulling her behind him, straight into the storm awaiting them. The night erupted with gunfire. And together, hand in hand, they ran, toward danger, toward freedom, toward whatever ending fate had written for them. But one thing was certain. Baek Do-hyun hadn't felt alive in 10 years. Tonight he was burning. Because she had grabbed him and never let go.